Welcome to Small College Conversations presented by Blue Frame Technology. I'm Jim Abbott. I'm the founder of the business of Small College Athletics, and I'm joined today by Sam Atkinson. Sam is the Associate Athletic Director for Communications at Gallaudet University. Sam, welcome and thanks for being here today.
Good to see you, Jim, and thanks for the invite.
Well, you bet. Sam, now you've been in collegiate athletics for about 15 years now. Will you talk a little bit about how you got started and some of the steps along the way for you?
Sure, not a problem. Ever since growing up as a kid, I've always been a sports fan, and I began writing sports when I was in high school, and of course, being a sports editor and going that route in college, writing for the college newspaper, the local newspaper in town, and getting involved in even television in college. I had an internship at CNN Sports Illustrated in Atlanta. My senior year of college when I was at Salisbury University. And it was used that to start my career in actually television. And then from there, I transitioned over to working at Inside Lacrosse Magazine and US Lacrosse, where I began working on websites. And that all kind of came to a head with those skills of working on television, working on websites, and writing to my transition to becoming a sports information director at my alma mater in Salisbury in 2006. And I was there for 3 years before moving closer to home up here in the Baltimore, Washington, D.C. area at Gallaudet in 2009, where I've been there for now my 12th year.
Well, when you worked on the website for the lacrosse magazine, was that in the early days of websites? Was that when people were really understanding the value of websites and what that would bring?
Yeah, that's right, Jim. When I got into websites in 2001 with Inside Lacrosse, I was their first webmaster, the first person working on websites, and the websites was new to me, and really new to the general public. So it took it was a big learning curve there, but the expectations wasn't really fancy flashing graphics or video at the time. Like, we were just trying to put lacrosse scores up on a website and taking SID press releases and copy and pasting them and putting them up on the website for people tracking Division I, Division II, Division III men's and women's lacrosse and JUCOs at the time. So it wasn't anything fancy or flashy, but that was trying to learn how to update a website and all that started back in the early 2000s.
Well, it's a perfect lead into my next question, because I've been in my position for 19 years, and 19 years ago, we did things very differently, and the expectations were much different. But, when I think about sports information in particular, I think probably in my department and in collegiate athletics, there probably isn't a position that's changed as much as sports information has. So talk a little bit about how sports information has changed and really how the scope of the job has grown.
Yeah, Jim, it's really a day and night comparison when you look back at the SID role 10, 15, even 20 years. Sports information directors nowadays are no longer just people keeping stats and writing stories about their athletic teams. It's a lot more goes into that position. A lot more has been added to that position over the years. As you can see, a lot more has been added, not a lot has been taken away, besides maybe getting rid of fax machines. But a lot of those, the new technology when it comes to the advent of websites and especially social media within the last 10 years has been a bigger burden for most sports information directors. And if you're talking at a small college division level like myself, you're a one-person, full-time person position, and you might have a grad assistant, you might have an intern, but the prospects of having a full-time assistant is slim. So all these extra duties are being added on to a sports information director. So what maybe a job description looked like 10 years ago has continued to be added on to what it is nowadays. And the focus with a lot of schools, of course, is recruitment. And a lot of the recruitment is done through social media, graphics, and video. So usually the one person behind the scenes trying to help coaches and helping their athletic department in that area is usually the SID.
Well, I have to tell you, I'm even slightly offended by the term sports information director. We several years ago changed our position. So my person in that area is the assistant athletic director for communications. I know that you're the associate athletic director for communications, and I'm an athletic director. I'm just going to tell you, it is a little offensive to me that the term still exists when I think about the fact that, you know, the primary storyteller for our athletic department is in this position. And we are asking that person to create content for social media across the board. I mean, I play 22 sports. You have several sports. The fact that we take web streaming, we just take it for granted. It's going to happen. And there's going to be a broadcaster, and there are going to be graphics. And so I wonder what you think about that. You have your finger on the pulse of this more than I do, but what percentage of these positions are still sports information directors, and what percentage have sort of followed the trend that you have, I have, to count them more as senior athletic administrators?
Yeah, Jim, that's a great point. And what you bring up as far as SID and sports information director. And I feel like in college athletics, we kind of get stuck with a lot of these acronyms and, SWA, FAR, and SID, and it's tough to break out of that mold. But as you've seen at your school, and you see it across your conference and at your division, how a lot of ADs have taken a different perspective of sports information directors and been able to promote them to either an assistant AD, associate AD. Really, SIDs are more than just, like we mentioned, stats and stories. They are strategic communicators, and they're the ones telling your stories for college athletics in your department. So having your SID within your senior level leadership team is really highly encouraged at any level, but especially at the small college division level, where if you're in a crisis communication situation, or if you need help with messaging, hopefully that assistant AD of communications or associate AD for communications, basically your SID is at the table with you, and they have a pulse of what's going on in your athletics department. They have they're at all the home games. They know what's going on within the conference at the national level. And they can help you with that branding and messaging and talking points, where, sometimes bringing the SID in from the outside to a senior level meeting and not being comfortable in those environments prior, it's not a good time to introduce the SID, when you're in a crisis. It's better to have the SID, or, at the senior level, at the table, helping you navigate any troubles that you might face as athletic department, but also helping to tell your story and your messaging and branding for your department in recruiting and moving forward.
I think it's a great point. I'm gonna go so far as to tell ADs who might be watching this now that I just hope you'll stop and consider that. I mean, we see athletic directors now that are vice presidents of athletics. We see senior associate ADs. We see deputy ADs, and I'm just going to challenge administrators who are watching this to really contemplate how you're framing that
Right.
very important position within your department.
And if I can add too, I think it's encouraging to see you're starting to see some SIDs going up the ladder within the collegiate athletics and even getting to the AD chair. And really, for us as a profession, in the SID profession, we need more allies like that are becoming ADs that will help us with, maybe the respect factor when we're talking about getting a seat at the table or getting respect or getting a title, and for what we do and what we provide to college athletics.
Yeah, I think that's great. So we've talked about this a little bit, but as the job has grown, the anxiety and the pressure and the stress of doing the job, the time involvement, it's all grown along with it. And I think burnout becomes a real fear. So we talked a little bit about showing appreciation in terms of the title and engagement in senior level activities. What else? What other thoughts do you have on what ADs can do to better support their sports information staff?
I appreciate that question, Jim. And that is an area where even Cosita, as a national organization for sports information directors, that we've been trying to champion, trying to get more staffing help for SIDs. A lot of small college shops, again, are usually only one full-time position. And with the added responsibilities and duties with video, social media, and the like, you're running out of time every day. The work hours have drastically increased and the demands have increased, but there's still only 24 hours in a day. But you still have situations where you have SIDs that might have to sleep in their office because they're there until 1 or 2 in the morning, and then they have a 9 o'clock game the next day. So we need to get out of that setup. And I think sometimes when you talk to SIDs and you ask them if they can have one thing, it's not always going to be the title or the money. It's actually having a physical person to help them manage and try to work on that work-life balance also. That's always been a struggle for a lot of us in the SID profession. And unfortunately, we've seen a lot of good people in this profession leave and get burnt out because of that. So, wearing a lot of different hats, especially at the small college division level, we're not just like SIDs, we're also game operations, we're PA announcer, we're crowd control, videographer, you name it. But I think a lot of SIDs, they enjoy the job and then they enjoy being a part of that and promoting the student athletes. But that now, and the FOMO, as far as the fear of missing out, definitely consumes a lot of SIDs when it comes to things. Those stresses have led people to leave the profession, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think a big part of it is managing expectations. From time to time, I have coaches come into me and say, hey, you got to talk to our sports information person because I need to get this done. And it's a great opportunity for me to look at that coach and say, hey, no, you need to understand that you could have done this months ago. And we're in the midst of, particularly some of those times in the spring where we've got softball and baseball and basketball and wrestling. I think my responsibility, and I think what administrators can help do is manage those expectations a little bit. We've all dealt with coaches who are, who demand this must happen now. So in my case, and I hope for many other administrators, they use that as an opportunity to encourage the coach to relax, because we are not going to jump on our sports information people to drop everything else and get this done. Well,
yeah, and if I could add, I would say too, timing is everything. If you're a coach that's in the off season and you're emailing the SID 5 minutes before tip off of a home game, and you're demanding, some type of recruitment graphic or something, that's the worst time to probably be bothering the SID, and I've been trying to even educate my own coaches and staff to understand when there is the busy crossover season or the busy times for your SIDs. And I think it would help, for more administrators to try to help protect the SIDs and try to tell, push the coaches back a little bit as far as, they're going to get to it, but we're in conference tournament, play right now in the fall, and we need to focus on that, and we'll get to that when we can. Again, most shops are not built to have just an SID just for one sport, and I think a lot of coaches understand that, but also, you might be looking at a Division I school and what they do on social media and wondering why we can't do that at Division III level. Well, if we're going to be the Clemson of Division III, we need to be staffing our, sports information office like Clemson if you're going to want that type of video and graphics and stuff. So I think that's important for people to understand.
Well, coaches are not always known for their patience and understanding. They tend to be tightly wound, but there's a solution there, and I think that understanding and expectations are a big part of it. Let's switch gears just a little bit and talk more generally. What do you think are one or two of the biggest challenges that you see in college athletics these days?
Sure. Well, obviously, the big one that jumps out is the whole COVID-19 pandemic. It's really shown us how fragile some of athletic departments' financial situations are. I think many departments are going to have to regroup and reassess, where and how they're using their revenue streams in the future. I think at the larger levels, the amount of money going into facilities and long-term coaches' contracts with guarantees and buyouts has saddled athletic departments with some hefty debt. I think collegiate athletics needs a hard reset when it comes to these larger guaranteed contracts and buyouts. But how do athletic departments better prepare themselves for future issues that we may face down the road, like another pandemic or a work stoppage? And I think the real reality too for a lot of colleges is just the decline in enrollment and people not going to college. I think the other part of this when it comes to college athletics in the future is just the loss, kind of generational loss of sports fans. I think the younger generation nowadays is not into sports as much as in the past. I think a lot of us growing up, we always look forward to the weekend game of the week, and we only had a couple of channels. Growing up, we didn't have cable and social media, and I think what the challenge is for collegiate athletic administrators nowadays is trying to make your sporting event more into just an actual event, something for your current students on campus to be excited or encouraged to go to your games, not just to cheer on your team, but to be able to post something on Facebook or Instagram about them being at an event, being seen. So it's kind of changed the way of not just like selling tickets to a game and come cheer on the team. It's, how can you make that more of an event, with a game going on? So it's a lot of challenges there, I think, for administrators nowadays.
It's those are excellent, Sam, and well thought out. It is interesting. I come from a generation when we had one baseball game a week, and I during that time could tell you the starting lineup for every major league team. I don't know how.
Right.
And now we're saturated with opportunities, which creates a challenge to some extent because you can watch a game on your phone or computer or anywhere at any time. But you aptly mentioned the pandemic at the start of some of our challenges. So talk a little bit about how that's impacted your work and how the focus of your position has changed during this time.
Sure. Well, I still haven't been back to my office since March. I've been working remotely just outside of DC here in my basement of my house. And, it's been the same situation for our staff and coaches. Our students at Gallaudet have been learning this whole fall semester remotely. So, basically the school is still shut down. So in doing so, we've had to over communicate to our student athletes, coaches, staff, faculty, and basically the entire campus community of what athletics is working on. Just because we don't have any games at this time, it doesn't mean that we're not working. There's a lot of things going on behind the scenes that our athletic department is doing. And of course, our main focus is our current student athletes and our future student athletes and recruitment for our teams. But we've also repurposed our staff and coaches, and they're working on 5 different committees within our department, the 5 being back to sports, student success, recruitment, racial equality, and athletic operations. So those items and duties have given our, more purpose to our staff and coaches of what we need to be doing right now to get ready for when it's safe for us to go back. And we'll be better prepared. And also we're facing those different challenges that present themselves currently for us. And then lastly, as far as an SID, we've had to become better recruiters in populating our websites with new content and sharing more on social media and being creative with our content that we provide, as far as older videos and game footage and just being creative as much as possible to engage with our current student athletes, make sure they feel a part of the team, but also trying to still sell and recruit future student athletes to our campus.
One of the great things about our profession is the willingness folks have to share I think on the playing field, we're going to try to beat one another, but beyond that, everyone works really well together to share ideas and support one another. And I think a key for that, particularly in the sports information world, is the great work that Cosita does. You are the current president of Cosita, and I wonder if you just talk a little bit about, how you got started in terms of your involvement with Cosita, and then ultimately worked your way up to the leadership of that organization.
Sure, I'm happy to discuss that. When I first got into sports information back in 2006, I got involved with Cosita, and initially just wanted to become a member of it, understanding that it was a bigger organization and wanting to learn more about the profession. Never being a SID before, I had to learn a lot on my own the first couple of years in this role. And Cosita was invaluable to me to try to learn those skills that I needed to learn. I went to my first convention in 2007. And wanted to get on the committee right away just to get involved and learn more about the organization, and ended up signing up for the charity committee. And myself and one of my good friends, Ryan Klickner, SID at St. John's in Minnesota, a Division III school, were the only two people to show up. And then they basically said, this committee's been dormant for years. If you guys want to pick it up and run with it, great. So and that's what we did. So over the course of the next 8 years, we built that up to our Goodwill and Wellness Committee. We started with different initiatives with health and wellness for Cosita members. I think one thing that's pretty obvious to a lot of people is SIDs are probably not healthiest people. So that's one issue that we really wanted to address. And we wanted to get our SIDs moving. We wanted them to eat better. We also wanted to show the great works that SIDs do on their campus communities. They're really to our Cosita 5K at every convention that we started to help encourage the health and wellness. I was the chair of that for several years, and then ended up getting onto the Cosita Board of Directors in 2015. And then just 2 years into my 3-year term, I was elected to the officers rotation. And this year I became only the second Division III SID to ever become president at Cosita. So it's been a long journey. It's been very interesting. It's very enjoyable. And I'm really excited for what we have laid out this year. In a challenging year, Jim, as we're all facing this, of course. But a couple of things, if you don't mind, I can touch on as far as what Cosita is doing for our membership and also just SID profession at large. It's basically, advocacy. A major focus for Cosita this year is of course, advocating for our profession and for our members. And we've been doing a lot of things behind the scenes, but also working with our allies at the NCAA, NACDA, NAIA, and other affiliates with Cosita in the profession. We recently wrote letters to ADs around the country at all different levels to reinforce the value of what a SID brings to an athletic department. And I know a lot of our members, unfortunately, are facing either furloughs or layoffs, and we're trying to really champion the profession and make people understand the value of holding on to those SIDs and in a difficult situation that a lot of athletic departments are facing. And we also have expanded opportunities for job seekers, career-minded professionals who may be out of work, helping them with career coaching and peer resume review. We've also just created a freelance database. This spring we could be looking at, having winter, fall, and spring sports all going on at the same time. So a lot of SID offices are going to need help. And that's one plea I would make to a lot of athletic administrators to think about this as far as scheduling. And, if you only have one full-time SID, you're going to need to give them some resources to help staff all those home events. And also, as you mentioned before, just kind of curb expectations of, not being able to cover everything. If you have 3 home games at once, it's very difficult. And, the expectations of always having every game web streamed or live stats and everything. So, that's going to be a big thing this spring, and see how things play out across the country. And hopefully we're back hosting games and we're doing the routine stuff, but it's going to be a challenge when we have a lot of different sports. A couple more things just to touch on. Coming up in January 20th to the 26th of 2021 will be our 5th Cosita Membership Recognition Week. That's our Thank Your SID promotion. So we'll definitely be trying to love up our colleagues and our profession, but also hopefully have others within collegiate athletics understand, that it was recognition for Cosita. And lastly, our racial and social justice initiative is a main focus too for Cosita this year. It's one of the top issues that we're tackling. And we're aware that we have a problem also in our current makeup of our profession, and our profession is over 90% white males, and we are well aware of that, and we're dedicated to making changes in this area. And they always say, change starts at the top. And if you look at the makeup of our Cosita Executive Board of Directors, you'll see a board that's the most diverse it's ever been, not just the way we look, but who we represent. For the first time in our organization's history, every single division is represented on our board: Division 1, 2, 3, NAIA, youth sports, and 2-year colleges. And our officers group also is very diverse. And next year, Cindy Potter from Columbia College in Missouri will be the first Cosita president from NAIA. And then the following year after that is Jessica Poole from Chicago State University will become the first Black female Cosita president. So we're really excited for our future. There's a lot to tackle this year. It is a difficult situation for everyone, but we're doing the best we can to support our members and champion our profession.
Well, Sam, I have to tell you, this is the first time you and I are meeting, and I'm absolutely impressed. I love seeing small college leaders that are heads of national organizations. I just love it. And to hear that next year a female NAI sports information director will head Cosita is terrific. I'm very grateful for your time. I'm grateful for the time you spent to share some wisdom with us today. I'm grateful for your leadership in Cosita, and I look forward to certainly staying in touch as we continue to navigate this year. I'm going to add for folks, don't wait till January to thank your sports information director. I mean, many of us right now don't have games. What a better time to just take the time to say thanks. So again, Sam, thanks so much for your time today. I'm grateful too to Blue Frame Technology for their sponsorship of Small College Conversations. Thanks for joining us, and I hope that you'll join us again next month. Thank you.